Good morning, everyone. So I'm George. Today I'll be talking a bit about regex. Yeah, so for this talk, firstly, I'll be covering some of the history, and then after that, I'll show you some of the basics. And at the end, I'll show some practical examples of how it can make your life just a little bit easier. So what is regex? So regex is a text string that describes patterns to find positions of text or text in a body of text. So if you look below, you'll see two regex patterns, ABC, uh, which they do look quite different. The first one will just match ABC, and then the second one will match a uppercase letter followed by a digit. But I'll cover a bit more of the basics later on. So for the history of regex, it started in the 1950s. So a computer scientist and mathematician, Stephen Kleene, developed it out of the subfields of automata theory in mathematics. And what I find quite interesting is you'll see from 1957 to 1981, there's been multiple other implementations of pattern matching. Although all of these came out after regex and they've mostly died out, and regex is the only one remaining. So in the 1960s, Ken Thompson with Bell Labs wrote regex into its first text editor, the QED text editor. And in the 1970s, they added it into Unix programs and utilities like grep, sed, and awk, which a lot of you guys, I'm sure, have used before. So how does regex make finding text easier? Well, your only real alternative is writing custom parsing programs for each specific task. So it is very useful to learn it. So from 1980, a man named Henry Spencer wrote the regex library we know today. So it did look quite different back in the day. And then from there, Larry Wall incorporated it into the Perl language and further extended the regex library. And regex engines used to be deterministic finite automatons, but they now NFAs, non-deterministic finite automatons. All you really need to know about that is it is no longer following the original mathematics that it's based on. So technically, regex and regular expressions are different, but to most normal people, it's still the same thing. So covering some of the basics, regex has characters which you can use to match patterns in your string. So for example, a \w stands for word character, which is all ASCII letters, digits or underscores, and then the uppercase character is just the opposite. So it would match anything that's not a word character. \d for digits, and it has its opposite as well. There's also characters for white spaces. And then there's also a special character, which is the dot, which matches anything, basically any character. There's also backslashes to escape special characters, although regex also does support annotation for string literals, so you don't necessarily have to escape all your special characters. And then for quantifiers, there's quite a few. So the plus is quite simple. It means it can match a character once or more. And then if you put brackets, you specify the amount of times characters have to repeat. So if you just specify 3, it'll only match if the character repeats 3 times. But if you put 2 and 4, for example, it'll look for matches or characters repeating 2 to 4 times. And if you just add a comma at the end, it'll match 3 or more times. The star, which is quite interesting, it's actually named the Clean Star to commemorate the creator of regex. It matches any character 0 or more times. And the question mark is also quite simple. It matches any character 0 or 1 times. And then in terms of logic, we have a basic OR operator. We have capturing groups. And capturing groups allow you to match strings that you matched in your pattern before. So for example, you can match ABC and then match capture group 1 if you want to match it twice. And then you also have non-capturing groups, which is groups that you don't want to return in your results. And you also have character classes. So for character classes, it matches anything in that character class. You can also specify ranges. In a single character class, you can also specify multiple ranges if you want to do that. And then there's also negated character classes, which will match anything that is not in that set. And yeah, lastly, there is also one where you can specify hexadecimal values, and it'll match that character on the ASCII table. So another feature which I found quite hard to get into when I first started regex is lookarounds. So lookarounds basically allow you to match certain things but not include it in your results. So for example, a positive look ahead will match a character after the expression, but it won't return it in your results. So in the example I give here, you'll see the last digit is always excluded from the results. And then the positive look behind is basically the exact opposite. So it'll match any character before the expression and it won't include it in the results. And negative look ahead, it's a bit more complicated. This one will match, or it won't match if the specified character appear before an expression. And then negative look behind is once again just the opposite of a negative look ahead. So another interesting feature is character class operations. So for character class operations, you can actually do subtraction. You can also do intersection and union between character classes. So in the example I give there, you'll see if I specify a range from A to Z and I subtract all the vowels, it'll match any consonant that I give it. So regex also supports recursion. So if you specify that syntax anywhere in your pattern, it'll basically do recursion. So the easiest way I've found to understand it is it's basically the same as pasting your existing pattern over and over again wherever you indicate the recursion. So you might wonder why there's an extra question mark after that pattern that I specified. So if you don't have an extra question mark, it'll never match, because remember, question mark matches 0 or 1. So if you don't find a match, it'll just stop. But if you put a question mark, it'll either match nothing or your recursive pattern that you're looking for. All right, so regex also has quite a few different engines, also known as flavors. So for example, the previous thing that recursion that I mentioned is only available in the Perl flavor of regex. You also have PCRE for C and C++. Java has its own, as well as .NET. And syntax and features can differ quite a bit depending on which regex engine or flavor you use. So just keep that in mind. And then for practical use cases, probably the most useful is grabbing text from files if you need it. You can also use it to validate text in your code, like IP addresses, email address formats, phone numbers, stuff like that. It also allows you to search and replace text in most modern IDEs like VS Code or IntelliJ. And another cool feature is a lot of file managers actually has regex capabilities. So this allows you to rename hundreds of files if you want to, or just search through them more easily. It also allows you to search through the command line, like I mentioned earlier, using stuff like grep and awk. And it also allows you to look for database records, and SQLite specifically. I'm not too sure about other databases, but it does make selects and stuff like that quite interesting. And that's it.